What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to Unit 5.6. We're doing causes of World War II. In the last video, we kind of talked about the 1920s and the problems that existed and then leading into the Great Depression. This is going to really take us from the 1930s through, but a couple pieces. The first two parts of this are a little review, so let's rock and roll and get into this. The first two causes, like I said, of World War II, we've talked about already, and this is a refresher. I've been trying to set us up for what is going to be World War II and what leads into World War II. So cause one, we have the Treaty of Versailles. Main thing about the Treaty of Versailles, if you forgot, it ends World War I. That Treaty of Versailles is going to punish Germany harshly. Germany is harshly, hugely, enormously punished at the end of World War I. They are to have to take full responsibility for the war. They have to pay back all the money spent by Britain and France. They have to lose their colonies. They lose their military. They lose land. It is horrible. And the German people are embarrassed and gut-wrenched. It's horrible for what they have, for what the Treaty of Versailles does to them in their viewpoint. We also have Japan and Italy who aren't happy because they did not get the land they were promised for fighting on the Allied side in World War I. So people aren't happy at the Treaty of Versailles. Also, just another cause, and this is again as a review, is we have unemployment. The Great Depression hits, unemployment's at 30% in some countries. And as I've mentioned in class, when economic situations are bad, you blame the leaders. And in this case, people are going to blame their governments. So the governments are going to lose credibility, lose, fancy word, legitimacy, or people believing that they should have power. They're not legit. And as a result of this, we have all this turmoil going on, a lot of problems. And I mentioned this in class, but I'll show you again. Germany, 30% unemployment, and it goes down to 2% over time. But we see these unemployment numbers are crazy high, stuff that we haven't seen in the United States since the Great Depression of unemployment these high. So those are the first two things. We have some problems with Treaty of Versailles, the Great Depression hits, leading to all this economic turmoil, economic problems. In the United States, just kind of like a side note to this, I just want to mention, you might have hopefully talked about this in 8th grade. In the United States, to get the U.S. out of this Great Depression, out of this 24% unemployment, Franklin Roosevelt creates who's the president at the time, creates what's called the New Deal. It's also known as like this alphabet soup. There's all these new organizations created to help employ people, to provide a safety net for people. For example, Social Security is created that if you pay into this system when you retire, you will get money. So if you are retired and you've been living off a pension or off a retirement fund, there's more money to help you out so you don't go into poverty. Puts electricity into rural areas, provides work programs for people who are unemployed to build roads, to build bridges, to help create employment, to do things in the country to employ people. That's what he's doing. In the process of all of this, while all this is going on, while all this Great Depression, Treaty of Versailles, and Hitler has taken over in Germany, there's going to be aggression and militarism, and that's our third cause. So we have Treaty of Versailles, Great Depression, aggression and militarism, and 3 countries are going to start going around and invading places that surround them. You have to remember with all of this that 20 years before this was the end of World War I, and people remember it. They are tired of war. They don't want another war. And the theme here is the League of Nations, which was created, an international government organization that is supposed to stop war. This League of Nations, which is created from the Treaty of Versailles, is weak. They don't want to get involved in war. They don't want to do anything. They're just kind of sitting back, hoping that everything will really work itself out. And so there's 3 places. So one, we have Japan. Japan, in the 1920s and 30s, the military takes control of the government. If you remember back in the 1800s, we had the Meiji era where they industrialized, they nationalized, they're expanding. They joined World War I on the side of the Allies. And then in the 1920s and 30s, the military is kind of like, with all these problems in the world, we want to take over. We didn't get what we wanted from the Treaty of Versailles. Things economically aren't looking good around. The military is going to take control. And generally when militaries take control of the government, they want to go out and prove their military might. So Japan is going to promote this sense of nationalism, militarism or military, and they want to prove their domination. They are a chain of islands. They lack natural resources, but they're industrialized. And to industrialize, you need natural resources. So they're going to go out and start conquering places. They invade this part of what is now what is northern China, which is called Manchuria. Sorry for the graphic images here. I want to let you know that this is very, very horrible stuff that's going on. They're going to invade Manchuria. They're then going to go in and invade northern China, and they are going to conquer and take it over. They are going to treat the Chinese people horrifically awful. In the mind of the Japanese, being nationalistic, they've been the little brother to China for the past thousands of years. and they feel like they've been treated unfairly by the Chinese. So when they go in and nationalistic, they're going to do some horrifically awful things, and we will talk more about this in class. But one of the worst human rights violations or human atrocities, a bad thing that happens, is in 1937, which what is called the Rape of Nanking or Nanjing, which is right here. It was one of the main cities in China at the time, and they're going to go in, the Japanese, and they're going to lead to the death of about 50,000 to 300,000 people in 2 months in this invasion. Really, really horrible, awful stuff. And we'll talk more about it in class, a couple of primary sources and stuff. Meanwhile, Italy, so we have Japan, nationalistic, militaristic, focusing here. They're eventually going to expand into the Pacific as well, but more on that later, Pearl Harbor, all that good stuff. Italy's also going to do a little invading. They are in alliance with Germany. Italy's going to go in and invade Ethiopia, which is the country they lost to during imperialism when the Italians tried to invade Ethiopia. Their goal is to prove they're stronger. They're doing the same thing. The League of Nations should be stopping this. The League of Nations should be stopping this. The League of Nations should be stopping this. But I'm coming back to here for the League of Nations is weak. They are not doing anything. It is not good. These countries are getting permission by the League of Nations not doing anything that's okay. It's kind of like in school. If there's a rule that's never enforced, people assume that there's other things that they can break if we're not enforcing anything. So if nothing's being enforced, if we're not stopping one country from invading, everyone else is getting the okay or the green light. And one thing, just an FYI, when these invasions aren't just like, oh, we took you over, oh, now we're in charge. It's horribly awful stuff. In here, the capital of Ethiopia is Addis Ababa. There's a horrible massacre that happens there, decapitations, castration of men, burning homes, just horribly awful stuff by the Italians who, again, social Darwinism, and they lost to the Ethiopians 50 years before. They're coming back for paybacks. They're going to take it to the extreme with this social Darwin idea. Last piece, and probably the most important of all of this, is Germany. Germany their goal is to end the Treaty of Versailles, to try and unite all German-speaking people. And one area that has a large German-speaking population is Austria, which is a new country that was created after World War I when we broke up Austria and Hungary, which is where the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was from. He actually goes to Austria and he says, hey, let's have a vote. Do you want me to come in and invade you and take over and make you part of the German Empire? Yes or no? And the Austrian people overwhelmingly vote for Hitler and the Nazi party to invade Germany, because they come back here and they look at this stuff and they say, dang, Germany, you went from 30% unemployment to 2%. Come on in and do the same here. And they do that. The problem is that in Austria and all these countries, there's people who are not German speaking. There are people who do not practice Christianity. There are people who are not supporters of Nazi Germany who are going to find themselves hurt. And one other place, there's this place in Czechoslovakia, which has a large German-speaking population. This is kind of one of the final straws, a big piece of all this, where Hitler says, hey, this is coming back here. I want to show you. This is Austria. This is Czechoslovakia right here. Hitler says, hey, these areas right here have a large German-speaking population. They used to be part of Germany before the Treaty of Versailles. Like, it used to be German population. We want this land back. He says to the League of Nations, if you allow us, he says, League of Nations, Britain and France, if you allow us this territory right here, we won't invade anyone else ever again. And in the mind of the British and French, they do not want war again. And they come up with this agreement. They sign it in Munich. It's called the Munich Agreement. And Hitler writes on a piece of paper, I will not invade anyone else ever again. I promise, swear, cross my heart, hope to die, blah, blah, blah. And the British and the French do what is called appeasement. They give up this land. They say, we're not going to fight Hitler over this because we don't want to avoid war. Appeasement is when someone annoys you and you let them get away with it because you don't feel like dealing with the problem. You maybe do the dishes or take out the trash because you don't want mom or dad chirping in your ear. You let your friend be a little extra annoying sometimes because you don't want to get into a fight. That's appeasement. And that's what the European countries are going to allow Hitler to do here. So they give him this land, promise I won't invade anyone else. And then the next year he takes over the rest of the country. So the idea is Hitler is like a little child that when he gets his way, he keeps doing more and more to test it. And one last side note to this, while all this is going on, all this invasion, Hitler has bordered right here on Poland, and this is the Soviet Union right here. And Hitler, who's a totalitarian, and Stalin, who is a totalitarian, communist here, fascist here, they decide that they are going to split Poland if either of them ever invade the country. So they have this agreement. They're not supposed to like each other, but they have this agreement secretly that if they ever invade Poland, either of them, they will split it. And this is going to lead into the start of World War I, which we will talk about later. And that's all I got. A lot going on there. So 3 causes, hopefully you know them, of World War I or World War II. In the next video, we'll talk about the fighting in World War II and what starts it. That's what I got. You got any questions? You write it down. You let me know. Out.